Remember when we studied the class, we learned that we have methods, and methods are functions defined inside the class, and we access them using the dot operator. Today we will learn about the different methods that exist as part of the list data structure to make your life much easier. By the way, it is a good habit to learn to go to the documentation and learn about the many different things in Python. So when you have something, you can Google it and go to docs.python.org and start to browse what is there. For example, if you try to access the list data structure, you start to find a bunch of data structures, bunch of operators or methods, description for them. It's a very important habit for an engineer to get used to read the documentation. So this is something that you should do a lot. If I taught you something like, say, dictionary data structure, you should go to the documentation and learn about what are other functionalities exist as part of the data structure. Another way also is to browse your own code. If you created a list and click the control button and clicked on list, you will get inside the list data structure. Observe here there are a lot of methods. For example, the append method, the clear method, copy method. Also, you can find a bunch of things like length, iter, init. You see here the init, which is a constructor, is taking a sequence. We will see all of that. So now let's get into the details. There are three relevant methods in the list, which are the append, extend, and insert. Here is the basic values. When you say append, you are adding an item to the end of the list. So this list will have the string high after its end. When you use the extend, you need to provide something that we can iterate over it. You should provide a list of items. So if you would like to add in a single element, you can just say append. But if you would like to add all the elements of a list, for example, then you write extend and give it. So the extend is going to iterate over items. If you try to extend with a single item, it will tell you type error, int object isn't iterable. This message means int object 2 is an object of type int. Isn't iterable. It means we cannot make a for loop over this thing, so we cannot iterate over it. This is wrong. The other method is the insert method. The insert method is inserting an item in a specific position. So here is our last list. If I say insert in position 2 the string wow, so here in position 2 wow will be inserted. So these are the difference between these three items. The append method is the fastest among them. The insert is the slowest. During the exercises, we will get a more sense of what we call order, and we'll get more sense about what is really fast and slow. The other three relevant things is the pop, remove, and the delete statement. So here is our current list. When you say .pop, it's going to remove the last element and return it. But if you say pop of 3, which is a specific position, it's going to remove this specific position and return it back for you. So the pop is your way mainly to remove a specific element. In a very similar way, the delete statement can also remove an element, but it doesn't return its value. So pop is more flexible for you, and I prefer it much more. So pop is mainly removing an item. If you are removing it from the end of the item, this is very fast, but if you're removing from the middle, this is a bit slow. The last thing here is .remove function. The .remove function take a value, not an index, and this is a common error. You give it a value, like here we have the list now is 5, 10, 2. You give it 10 and it's going to find the first 10, and remove it. So pop take an index, remove take a value. If you try to remove a value that doesn't exist, let's say remove hey, which doesn't exist here, you are going to get an error, value error. There is also the index method. The index method, you give it a value, it will return the first index of this value. For example, .index of 7 should return 2, which here. Notice 7 exists twice, but this is the first index. If you ask it for the index of Mustafa, Mustafa would be in the index 3. Now be careful about index of true and false. Avoid them as much as you could. When you say .index of true, it will return 0, because 1 is a true value. Remember what could be true? Any value that isn't an empty string or a 0 value can be a true value. So 1 is true, 15 is true, 7 is true, and so on. When you say .index of true, it will give you the 1. It give you 0 for the first value. So be careful from that. In a similar way, .index of false would return for you the position of the 0 value. So be very careful. You might think that this index will return for true, but this will not happen, because eventually the true and false are just integers behind the scene. If you try to .index for something that doesn't exist, again you will get a value error. There is also the clear method, which is simply clear all the elements in the method, so the length will be 0. In terms of the garbage collector, when you make a whole list .clear and there are no more references for the items, then the items will be scheduled soon to be removed from the memory. The count method, as its name say, is simply counting how many items, how many objects exist. Forget about this line for now. .count of 4 will give you 3, 4, 4, 4. Now it's a mistake to give it a list like that, and we're thinking that is going to find this list like 4 and 5. This will not happen. It's actually searching for an item that actually is a list. If you have my list of Ali, 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 but this one is capital and you are counting the Ali small one, the count will be, sorry, it should be 2, this guy and this guy. The plus and the plus equal. This is very tricky and I would like to stress over it. The plus equal is an in-place algorithm. I guess you heard the word in place from me. You will hear it more than once from me. The word in place means that changing are happening internally in the data structure itself without affecting another data structure. So something internally happening. When we say plus equal, we are actually playing inside the data structure. This is very similar to the extend method. Let's see here some example to tell you what's happening. If we have a list of 3 items, 1 to 3, let's print the ID of list. It will be say 111. If you said here plus equal 4, this is an in-place change. So now the ID of list will be again 111. Notice the big difference here. If I said list equal list plus 5, this will create a new list and assign its value here. So it's going to be 2, 2, 2. Creating new memory means it will take more memory and be more slower. So be careful. Do you really would like just to extend your item or not? If you'd like to extend it, either use the extend method or use the plus equal. So far so good, but there is also one more tricky thing that I would like to notice. If you say list plus equal, hey, like that in a list, remember the plus equal is same as extend, is going to iterate on this item, which is a list. So iterate on a list of a single item, hey will be added. If you wrote list plus equal hey with that, again plus equal is like extend. It needs something that is iterable. Is hey iterable? The answer is yes. Hey is a string of 3 items. The list now will have 3 strings of 3 different letters. So the big difference here is plus equal would like an iterable. So this is an iterable of 1 item, this is an iterable of 3 items. But here is a big difference that you should be aware of, the difference between plus and plus equal. If you try to write list equal list plus hey, this will give you type error. List plus 10, this will give you error. Plus equal will work and plus will not work. Why? Because plus equal is actually internally calling something called add. It's playing in place. But when you call the plus, it's actually trying to call what we call an add function. And it will fail because this guy cannot be added without being in a list. So plus and plus equal are in the same in the memory, are in the same in terms of what we adding to it. So be careful that behind the scene they are different things. That's all.